Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. You were great in this film, and I have some questions about it, and I also have some funny and unique questions.
Ooh, I
But
love.
firstly, I wanted to ask, how did you come across this project or get involved with it?
Well, this one, I've done a few films now with James Bamford, who is the director of this, and previously worked with him and Stephen Paul on Air Force One Down a couple of years ago, and loved them very dearly. Had the best time working with them. So when they said, "Hey, you want to come do a modern western and play the love interest in this film," I went, "Ooh, that's a new challenge. Let's have some fun." But it really came down to the script and the people for me. I've been a fan of Charlie's forever. And obviously, Jon Voight is a legend of the film industry, and getting to work with him was an utter joy. But this film had such a beautiful spirit of community to it, and it's one of those things that in the divisive world that we live in these days, it's nice to be reminded of the fact that yes, we can all have our differences, and yes, we can all have a right to our own opinions about and perspectives on things, but when things really come to a head, it's most important that we're there for each other as a community and that we are there to support each other when we really need help. And the fact that that is such a huge element to this film was such a draw for me.
That's cool. Yeah, I did get the sense of a family feeling to the film and the cast and everyone. So that sort of answers my next question. The one thing I loved about Cassie is she was badass, and like when people tell her not to do something or stay where it's safe, you give them like, "What did you just say to me?" and "Don't challenge me" look. So I was wondering, what drew you to her, and how did you relate to her?
Well, it was very interesting because, in the script was sort of developing as we were prepping to film this. And when I first spoke to James, the director, about doing this, he said to me, "Look, I've already added some action into the film for Cassie because we can't have you come to do an action film and do nothing." And I said, "Well, thank you. I love that." But then as I read the script, there was the one scene where Henry's character, Nathaniel, is locked up in the bathroom and Cassie brings him a glass of water. So she's the first person that's really kind to him, but then she sits him down and tells him what for, about his morals and about what she really thinks about everything that he's done and caused. And that, as another journalist called it today, spiciness, which I have cherry picked that word from them. It was really what drew me to her. And I said, wait a minute, let's find more of that. Because there's that, those are the women I was raised by, the women that, are the warmest, kindest people that will bring a stranger into their home and take care of them. But also, if you cross them and their family, they will stand firm. And that's
Mm.
really what Cassie brought to the table, being a character in this film that isn't based in action. She is the emotional pillar. She is the immovable object against the unstoppable force of chaos that is coming for them. And she's the one that sort of grounds everyone and keeps everyone sane and focused on what's really important through the whole arc of the story. But again, she's the strong Southern woman that is exactly the kind of woman I was raised by, is the one that, as Cassie does, literally looks death in the face and just says, no,
Yeah.
which I find rather, humorous, yes, but also incredible. Yeah, and I'm very grateful to have been raised by those women and very grateful to be able to bring them to life on screen.
Yeah, she was really cool in it. And how much of the film was real locations and how much was a set? And was any of the food real food or prop food?
Ooh, I don't know on the food. I think some of it was real because at the barbecue, I think people actually were eating the pancakes and such. Um, so I think a lot of it was real. So there's that much that I can answer. And then as far as real sets, Bulgaria, where we shot this, is amazing. Their film community is incredible, and their facilities are beyond your wildest dreams. So this was a set, but it was an actual house. So it was a
That's so
full
cool.
house on location of a studio lot. So we had full inside and outside use of this house, which we could not have done this film without, given how much action takes place from all different perspectives in every corner of this home. But the sheriff's station was set inside a soundstage, but the exterior was obviously on the lot. So it was a sort of a mishmash of things, but we shot, I think, 95% of this film on the studio lot. So it was great for us because we didn't have to leave.
Yeah, that's good. And what would you fire out the guns when filming? And did you do any shooting training to get into the character?
So I did a lot of training before I went to do Air Force One Down the year prior. If you've ever seen those videos of like Keanu Reeves training for John Wick, it's this amazing group of folks called Terran Tactical who are incredible, and they train the majority of people that end up working with firearms in film and TV, because they truly are some of the best. And I was really taken under their wing, and they taught me everything I needed to know for that film, which was fantastic. So then coming onto this one, I had a good modicum of knowledge in that. But what's amazing is on film sets today, most of the time you don't fire anything out of the firearms. There's nothing goes in, nothing comes out. Sometimes there are spent shells. If it's like for example, on Walker Independence, when I'm walking down the street and firing the gun over and over again, they have empty shells that will pop out of the gun so it looks real. But it's so easy these days to do a muzzle flash in VFX later that it's just safer for everyone involved if they're completely dormant, as it were.
Safe, yeah. And what else did you do to prepare for this film? And did you get to pick your own outfits and shoes for this film?
I did actually. That's something that I loved about this film is it was so collaborative. And I think because, the way that James Bamford loves to work is collaboration. And that's one of my favorite things about him as a director is he really trusts his actors to bring their characters to life and to put thought into them and care into them, as everyone did on this project, which was brilliant. But every single department sort of followed suit, and it was so collaborative in kind of building things and putting them together, and obviously with massive respect to the designers and their vision for the film overall. But as an actor, sometimes you don't even get to have an opinion, and that it was really kind of them to allow the process to be collaborative throughout.
That's amazing. And what was the hardest or most challenging scene for you to film?
Ooh, I will say one of the more challenging days for me in a very silly way, I guess, as it were. I've never been a waitress before as a job. And I've always had massive respect for wait staff. I can only imagine the things that many people go through and in the service industry, and the things that they have to endure and the stamina that they must have, because but even more so after those couple of days on set, because even just busying myself with trying to remember the complicated route that I had and gave myself to stay busy and look as though I was actually doing a job in the background. My brain was every direction, and I was very scattered by the end of that day, and couldn't put a sentence together. But it really was a lot of fun to get to, again, be a chameleon and play in somebody else's shoes for a few days.
Mhm. And how was filming the action scenes? And as you've done stunts before, were you allowed to do your own stunts?
I was actually on this one.
That's great.
Great. And, it was the same stunt folks that I worked with on Air Force One Down. So all people I'd fought with before, and that level of trust was already built. And I had the most wonderful time. It becomes fun at that point because you really do get to just have that trust in each other and be like, okay, great, let's make this as best as it can be, because they know what I'm capable of and I know they're incredible to work with. And it just makes for a really beautiful working relationship.
That's amazing. And can you share a funny behind the scenes moment or a blooper from set?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to think. Funny behind the scenes moment or blooper. I think there were a fair few times that, especially in the diner, there was so much to reset. Certain props wouldn't get reset, or like the door stuck or something. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. But I know a fair few times in that diner we would just end up in fits of laughter because something would spill or somebody would trip on something, or something would drop and clatter in the background, and you're just like, sorry, clumsy. This is just how it goes sometimes. Welcome to the diner. But ultimately we found our way.
Mhm. And I have a bit of a funny and unique question. As this film has some horrible villains who aren't nice, and you were in Shadowhunters, which is to do with magic, I was wondering if you had the power to turn people you disliked or hated into bugs, would you?
Um, oh goodness. I would probably say no. I don't dislike
You're
or
kind.
hate many people in this world. I think that's a disservice to you as a person if you're holding those feelings against someone. And I don't wish ill upon anyone, to be honest. I don't think anyone deserves to be a bug. Bugs have a hard enough life. If they had to
Yeah.
encounter a previous human that had turned into a bug, that's just a problem for the bugs.
Yeah. You're very kind. And were there any deleted scenes you can share, or were you allowed to do any improvisation?
We did do a little bit of improvisation, especially with Jon, and that's just a gift that James as a director gives us, is when you have actors that are willing to play and willing to kind of rise to that occasion, then he lets you. So we found some really fun stuff there. There was a different ending to the film. There were a
Yes.
couple of deleted scenes. There was sort of a, the happily ever after is sort of implied in the final cut of the film, but you actually got to see it in one version of the film, and for whatever reason they decided to sort of leave it slightly more ambiguous, which I totally understand. But there is more that folks have not seen.
Mm. I can't, hopefully we'll get to see them. And I was wondering if you're comfortable sharing, when filming romantic scenes or kiss scenes, how do you get comfortable with your co-stars? And is it a bit harder because it's a film instead of a TV show, so you have less time to work with them?
No, honestly, for me, anything romantic on screen is probably the most unromantic thing that you will ever do.
Mm.
Because there's 50 people around you with cameras right next to your face, and you're like, oh, this is a handshake essentially. But it does make it a lot easier when you have people that are so lovely as Charlie was, and as most of the people I've worked with over the years have been, and there's an understanding there, and it's two professionals telling a story, and two people that have, as long as you can build that level of trust that any two actors build together, then it's just all part of the process.
That's nice. And what did you and the cast do between filming scenes or after filming scenes?
Mostly because we were shooting nights, we went to bed because the sun was rising, and we were exhausted. But there we did have a few like cast nights. We did karaoke one night, and we hung out a few other times. But on a film like that, the pace is so quick, and you're doing mostly nights, everyone's just kind of in survival mode. But we did have plenty of time on set, mostly in the middle of the night, to sit and chat and get to know each other. Like, hearing Jon's stories from over the years was brilliant and wonderful, and just really getting to connect with everyone on set was quite lovely.
That's nice. And can you share any upcoming projects you have? And I also think you have a great singing voice, so would you be interested in putting out more music in the future?
You, I would
You're
love to
welcome.
do that. Yeah, I mean, I'm dying to go back and do more Broadway, or to find a movie musical, or to go back to doing my own music as well. It's all about finding the time.
Mhm.
But yes, I do have a fair few projects that are in the can and waiting to come out at this point. One of which that I can talk about is called The Queen's Jewels. It's sort of Outer Banks meets National Treasure, as it were, and it's a beautiful story about love and adventure and fun and good old treasure hunting, that we shot
I'm
in.
excited to watch.
Oh, it's so great. I've seen bits of it, and it's really, really well done. And the
Yeah.
cast is amazing. So again, it's another one that was just a joy to make and a lot of fun.
That's good. And my two final questions before I go is another funny and unique question. But given that your character in High Ground works at a cafe and serves food, and to fit into the magical theme of your previous roles, I was wondering, if you encountered a talking gingerbread man or your favorite food could talk, would you eat it? And would you say anything to it?
I would probably have a conversation with it, but I definitely wouldn't eat it. I don't think I could.
Mhm.
I would be too afraid to hurt
Yeah.
it.
I'm a vegetarian myself. And my final question before I go is, if there was a sequel to this film, what would you like to see happen?
Oh, that's interesting. We did talk about it. We had a joke on set that we wanted to do Cassie's Revenge as the next film, and just see this poor woman that's been through this traumatic process just entirely, go on a revenge hunt and just take everyone out. I think mostly it's because I'd worked with the stunt crew before, and everyone is used to me being the tiny blonde lady that fights through every film. And I suddenly wasn't, and it was very confusing.
Yeah.
But I would love to work with these folks again on this world or another one. It's just a joy, and we had the best time.
Fingers crossed. Well, thank you for chatting with me. And just before I go, I wanted to show you something. I actually have a picture. I'm not sure if you can see it, but I met you in London a few years ago
Oh my gosh,
at a Comic Con. Can you see it, hopefully?
oh, that's
Oh,
wonderful.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
well,
see you
thank you.
again. And
It's
thank you.
nice meeting you as well. Congratulations on the film, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
There's no running and hiding from them.
I'm doing neither. 3, 2,